Amazing. Looks like a great mix here today. Okay. I think let's get started then. Thank you all for being here today and welcome to this webinar, The Power of Contracts, Unlocking Sustainable and Circular Business Practices. We're going to dive deeper into why contracts are so important when it comes to climate action and the circular economy. And then we're going to explore product as a service, recognize circular business model, and we're going to hear a little bit about product as a service in action with light as a service. For those of you who don't know, my name is Emma Wink, and I'm a sustainable finance specialist at the Base Foundation. And I am also leading activities at the SET Alliance, Servitization for Energy Transition Alliance. And we're dedicated to advancing product as a service models for a more sustainable built environment. And this webinar today is actually part of our work supported by the Circular Buildings Coalition, which I will go into in more detail later. But really, we're trying to focus on product as a service contracts for building services. So here we're talking about cooling, heating, and lighting. Please, could you go to the next slide, Hugo? Just some general housekeeping. So this is a 60-minute session, and we will have a Q&A session at the end. We are recording the session today, and we will also share all the materials afterwards. Regarding the chat and the Q&A, we welcome your questions, please. Please submit your questions at any time. We will get to these either directly after the presentation if we're running well on time, or we will come back to these in the Q&A. We'll try to answer as many as possible, and if not, we'll provide written answers afterwards. And please use the chat if, for example, I'm on mute. Let me know. And we want to try out a poll today, which we'll do in a minute. So we invite you to please participate, maybe to get the little brain cells working. Wait 1 sec. Sorry, go back, Hugo, 1 second. Yeah, and also just in terms of connecting with the speakers and with us, we'll have a little feedback survey at the end, which we'll share. And we really encourage everyone to reach out after the session. And just to say, we hope you enjoy, and thanks for taking the time this morning. So now to the Slido. So we wanted to start before the presentations with a poll. And the question we want to ask you is what is the biggest challenge to advancing a more circular and sustainable built environment? So we've identified some challenges, and we would like you to rank these in order of what you see as the biggest challenges. There's a QR code to join. And just to let you know, once you've done the ranking, you need to click send. So we'll just wait a couple of minutes for everyone to do this, and hopefully we should be able to share the results afterwards. And oh, okay. So just to go through these, so the first one, it's the first one related to it's changing as the rankings change, but higher costs and financial uncertainty. So this relates to investment risks or unclear return on investment. The second is the lack of kind of enabling policies. We don't have enough the right incentives or unclear guidance. And then third, the resistance to change, the mindset, and then the lack of capability. Is there not enough expertise when it comes to solutions? Or is it the fact that we don't have the right kind of infrastructure to carry out value recovery? Very interesting. So it's looking for the moment like the biggest challenge is related to kind of a mindset shift, that the benefits of certain models or the preference for just the way things have always been done remains a kind of strong barrier to the solutions, which I think is an interesting that this is coming first, because I think that the thread through all of the presentations and the speakers is this commitment to advancing solutions to overcome these barriers. Anyway, we can come back to this afterwards. I think for now we'll move on to introducing our first speaker. So I would like you to provide a warm welcome to Mina Kamath. Mina is Head of Built Environment at the Chancery Lane Project, which she'll explain what the Chancery Lane Project does. But basically, it's leading efforts to reduce emissions across the built environment using the medium of legal contracts and processes. Mina works closely with a group of ambitious organizations across both the public and the private sector, and with the legal community. And prior to joining the Chancery Lane Project, she was a real estate and finance lawyer at top international law firms, including DLA Piper and Linklaters in both London and Hong Kong. Thank you, Mina, if you'd like to share your screen.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that, Emma. And good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining today's webinar. So yes, as Emma said, I'll share in just a second, but as Emma said, I'm Head of Built Environment at the Chancery Lane Project, which I'll talk to you a bit more about in just a moment. But before the webinar today gets going with examining, as Emma said, product as a service in a little bit more detail and the important role that contracts play, I'm going to start us off with a bit more of a general overview of how contracts can be quite such an important tool in your decarbonisation strategies and how to align that throughout supply chains. And I'll touch on many of the similar themes to what Emma and her team are looking at around circularity and supplier engagement as well. So let me try and share my screen and just let me know if you can see this all right, Emma, if that's okay. That work?
Yes, perfect.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so here is the big idea. So most organizations on this call will already have thought at some level about setting climate, nature, or broader sustainability goals at some level, whether, organization, project, portfolio level. But we sometimes give a bit less attention to the actual mechanics of how to go about meeting those goals. And legal contracts can help you do that. Because every decision that you make or that your organization makes has a carbon footprint attached to it, whether that's about which supplier to use, how to transport your goods, what source of energy or other building services that you might use. All of those have a carbon footprint. And underlying every single one of those decisions is a legal contract. Now, some contracts last just 3-6 months and, okay, we can work with those ones. But in our complex built environment world, where we build these assets to last for a long time, many contracts last 5, 10, 15, even 20 years sometimes. These contracts are signing you up. You're signing up to concepts in these contracts, which will take you well beyond 2030, 2035, whenever you might have set net zero goals, and in some cases, quite close to 2050, both critical years for achieving whole world decarbonisation. So what we're finding is that businesses and public bodies alike are really waking up to this idea of rewiring those contracts. So they're not setting a goal up here, but signing up to a contract down here, which says something completely different. The two have to work in tandem. So it goes further than just goals as well. What we're really asking you is, how will you be able to meet your sustainability and climate goals? How will you be able to comply with any climate transition planning you might have done if you're signing up to agreements that don't reflect the goals. So contracts are not just about hitting someone over the head and saying you have to do this, if not, it's a breach of contract. Contracts are so much more than that. They can start a conversation with an ambitious supplier who perhaps supplies the majority of the materials that you might be using for a particular service or a particular build, to see how you can work together, set a framework for how you can achieve a particular goal. They can demonstrate commitment to investors, regulators, other stakeholders, and investors are particularly asking questions at the moment about what you're going to do to mitigate climate risks so that they can safeguard that investment that they've fed into. And as we discussed as well, it can also set a plan to make those goals achievable. They set out not just what your goals are, but how you plan to go about meeting them. And that is kind of where we come in. So this is us, the Chancery Lane project. We started about 5 years ago, just before COVID, and we started as just a handful of lawyers coming together on the side, as well as doing our day jobs, and brainstorming different solutions for how lawyers could get involved to support clients, support the built environment and other sectors, not just built environment. We work across different sectors, in mitigating climate risk and addressing climate change through the powerful work that lawyers do with legal contracts. But we've now grown into the largest global network of lawyers and business leaders using the power of climate contracting to deliver fast and fair decarbonisation. And we're about 20 employees, we're a non-profit, and we're independently philanthropically funded. So what we do fundamentally is provide high quality and, most importantly, open access and entirely free climate model clauses for you to take and drop into your contracts. And I'll talk you through a couple of them in a minute, because it can be a little bit abstract to just talk about clauses and contracts without giving specifics. All of the content that we have on our website, whether that's clauses, guides, a glossary of defined terms, all of these things were developed by some of the best and no doubt most expensive legal minds in the world. And we have content which spans many different jurisdictions, not just the UK, although we are based here in the UK. These are just a few of the contributors, and it really is just a few, because if you go on the website, there's hundreds and hundreds of them, and we're grateful to all of the companies that helped us to pull together the high quality clauses and guidance that you see on our website. As I mentioned, we have not just clauses, but also guides. We have a particularly popular one at the moment on climate transition planning and how contracts can help to support with that. And then glossary entries. We were quite surprised, I think, to find that there weren't so many legally acceptable standard terms for quite simple climate concepts. So we've aimed to address that through our glossary terms as well. With the clauses, you can use them exactly as they are, copy and paste, drop them into a contract. But I'd say it tends not to be the most common way to use them. Typically, people will take a clause, think about their own particular project, tailor it for their own needs, work with their lawyers, because we don't give legal advice, although some of us are lawyers, including myself, but you can work with your lawyers, bespoke it for what you need for your particular project or contract as well. All of the clauses that we have are given the name of a child who is close to somebody who helped us to draft the clause. In one case, I think the name of a rescue dog, Willow, as well. But that is really just to help contextualize and remind everyone of the importance of future-proofing your contracts. So, bit small possibly on your screens, but hopefully you can see this a little bit. This is just to show you some of the various places that contracts can fit into our complex and multidisciplinary built environment world, and all the kind of different layers where you can have different contract clauses. We also are not the only organization who provide high quality clauses. You can see there under occupational. We work closely with and support the Better Buildings Partnership in the UK, who provide green lease, have recently updated and relaunched their green lease toolkit. That's for commercial occupational leases. It can be easily adapted for residential, and it can easily be adapted for other jurisdictions as well. So that's an incredible resource, and we fed into that toolkit as well. So lots of these organizations kind of support each other as we do working with Set Alliance as well. So I'll pick up on a couple of there wouldn't be time today to go through everything, but I'll pick up on a couple of parts of this wheel. Let's look at supply chain and there's a particular clause I wanted to talk to you about around circular design as well. So firstly, with supply chain, this is Owen's clause. And after I've stopped sharing and can see my screen properly, I'll share a couple of links to this clause and the next one that I'm sharing as well, in case anyone wants to see them in full. So what is Owen's clause? This is a clause that aligns a business net zero targets throughout the supply chain. It does this by asking a supplier in the supply contract to set and regularly report on their net zero targets, and then to ensure that their own subcontractors, who they might be backing their obligations with, that they do the same as well. So it's a really powerful clause, because I think what it does is acknowledge that one supply contract with one supplier is never going to help you fully achieve what we all need to achieve in order to get to a much more decarbonized built environment. We have to work throughout the value chain, throughout the supply chain, and support suppliers to be able to achieve that. So one of the things with this clause, when I post the link later for anyone who's interested to look at it, you'll see it's quite beefy, it's quite long. So you pick and choose the bits that are most relevant for you. And also, one of the most important things in that third bullet point there is to consider how to tailor the clause for different suppliers. Different suppliers will be at different stages of maturity, complexity, and ability to meet these sorts of climate goals. So one of the things it says is set a net zero target, work towards getting it SBTI validated if it isn't already, science-backed targets initiative validated if it isn't already. Some suppliers may find that pretty tricky. So you may not want to say do it by next year, maybe do it by 3 or 4 years. You may want to support them in the process of ensuring that they're able to achieve it. You may not just want to say, you know, fill in this complex data report. You might want to say, you know what, we can accept your raw data and we can interpret it in our way. There's different ways of doing it, but it's a really important exercise to ensure that if you're putting drafting into a clause, that you work with that supplier to make sure they know what needs to get done and that you can support them to do that. That was Owen's clause. Alex's clause is one of my favorites as well, because this clause takes a kind of whole system view of a concept like using a reused or recycled material. It's all very well, and we have clauses that do and are important to use. We have clauses that say, you know, in your fit out tenant, you must use a certain percentage of recycled materials, or you must, you know, try and reuse something from the existing fit out, something like that, and that's great. But what this clause does is comes in at that earlier stage. And when you are commissioning particular products, you work with the product designer to ensure that the product is built, manufactured in a way that and designed in a way that it can be easily repaired and reused, recycled at the end of life. So building that in at the beginning makes it much easier to meet at the end when you try and say, let's use some recycled materials in this project. The clause does this by setting out particular circular design requirements, which should be tailored to the particular fit out or the project, and lots of things to consider when you tailor the clause around what do you want to do if they can't achieve it. Like I said at the outset, contracts don't always have to be a stick. It can also be a carrot. So thinking about things like incentives or kind of a tolerance window that you can work within with the designer, these sorts of things, and also bringing in ideas around insurance and certifications. Always one of the trickiest issues with recycled or reused materials is getting those insurers or warranty providers on board as well. So hopefully that kind of gives a bit of an overview of what I mean by clauses. We have like 172. I could talk about them all, but we don't have time for that today. So a couple of them to give a bit of an idea of what I'm talking about when I say clauses to help you achieve particular sustainability goals. Lots of organizations, again, I've just picked out a couple and I won't go into too much detail given I don't want to go over too much on timing. Emma, should I be wrapping up now?
Please continue. It's interesting.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I'll just take a couple more minutes then. But we've got lots of organizations who use our clauses. So I won't go through them all, but the Environment Agency is a really good example of those circular economy principles. So what they did on a particular build was require a certain percentage of materials to be cradle to cradle certified, which is a particular certification around reused materials. I think it's a UK certification. I'm sure there's other equivalents. But they ran a really great supplier engagement exercise around this. So they didn't just say, this is the percentage that we want, everyone make it happen. Different suppliers had different percentages, and that came from conversations, it came from workshops, it came from ensuring that suppliers knew what they had to do to meet that. So that clause is an effective clause because people will understand what they have to do and it's tailored. So I'll talk more about what an effective clause is in a minute. Bureau obviously kind of, big part of the way they run their business is climate and sustainability. So they use clauses. I won't go into hopefully you'll get slides afterwards, but all of these case studies are on our website as well. This one is a bit more of a construction project. In terms of getting started, so if anyone is listening to this thinking, sounds great, but how do we actually get started? I would say think about the contracts which are highest emitting, longer term, where the actual counterparty is perhaps more sophisticated if you're just starting out. So maybe don't do it with all your suppliers, particularly the smaller ones. Maybe those who have a sustainability team or a legal team, a higher likelihood of being able to agree to and meet the provisions. Maybe they have their own climate goals themselves and you're both singing from the same hymn sheet and everyone's happy. There's also guides on our website as well around how to go about introducing climate clauses to parties, what kind of language you can use to explain the concept. So I would definitely recommend looking at those as well. I touched on it briefly earlier, but in terms of what makes a good climate clause, I would say try to see the clauses as a shared commitment. So don't see them so much as a burden, but more as setting out this path to achieving your particular goals and ambitions. Make sure that you're supported by internal teams within your own organizations. And that was one of the things that Bureau did really well. It's described in their case study a bit, but they made sure that they got very senior level support for actually implementing these clauses so that the legal team or sustainability team didn't feel like they were sort of just going off, and did people actually support what they were doing. They should be specific and measurable. By that, I mean the clause should define specific climate obligations, and it should include performance monitoring, so whether that might be regular reporting, whatever that looks like, and particular metrics to ensure compliance and clear accountability between parties. Now, that also needs clear contract management. That comes at a cost. So again, that's why targeting those kind of higher impact, more sophisticated, higher value contracts can be a good place to start. I obviously think that clauses should be, I would love to say clauses should be as ambitious as possible. Go for like the biggest goals, set the biggest targets, but you also need to, balance that ambition with practicality as well, so that they can actually be met and they can be realistic, and that will lead to emissions reductions, not the most beautifully ambitious drafted clause, because if people feel like they can't meet it, they just won't do it and you won't see any carbon reduction. Those are the main points probably on that. And then the last thing I would say is just around kind of do this early. Once your contract has gone, once you've sort of instructed external lawyers to start working on a contract, things move quickly. You're not going to get the same kind of ability to include these sorts of clauses. Start early. Put it in the pre-tender documents. If you've got a particular goal that you want met, put it in pre-tender documents, questionnaires, for example, when you're choosing a supplier, and ask them, this is what we want to meet. How would you work with us to help to make this happen? And when you make a decision based on someone who says, yep, I can do that, make sure you thread that through to the supply contract and make sure that you ensure that it's met with those performance metrics, those reporting requirements. It's a cliche, but collaboration really is the key to making this happen. That supplier engagement piece that I've touched on already. So I guess the key thing here really is that, sustainability isn't just about publishing these lovely goals on your website and publishing a glossy report every year. It's about the actual mechanics of how you get there. And legal contracts are one of the most powerful but most underused tools in your sustainability toolkit. But what if they weren't? What if they didn't have to be? I think that could really help you to achieve goals and push projects forward. So hopefully that's given a bit of an overview of how. I'll hand back to Emma. I'm very happy to take any questions, but yeah, I'm conscious I've taken a few minutes more than I was supposed to. So I'm sorry for that, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mina. Let me just share my screen quick.
Yeah. Scherm delen. Tweede scherm.
Sorry about that. I hope you can all see my screen. Thank you, Mina, for the insightful presentation. I think it's very interesting for us to think about the fine print rather than just the goals and the targets themselves, and also thinking about in terms of product as a service, moving from a purchase agreement where there may not be a contract to actually having contracts. So this whole discussion about, well, what's going into these contracts and what's important and how do we create strong clauses is really, really relevant when we're talking about adopting and deploying product as a service models. Now I would like to hand over to Mikhail Joris from ETAP Lighting, who's going to talk about light as a service and go into more detail about the solution and contracts that they've delivered. And yes, Mikhail, the floor is yours. But I can't hear you. That's the only thing. Just.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
You hear me? Do you see my presentation? I will start my presentation. You see it now?
Yes, everything is good. I can hear you and see you.
Everything fine? Okay. Thank you for the invitation, Emma. So let me present a very quick ETAP. ETAP is a medium-sized company with 275 employees. It was my father who founded the company in 1949. So we are already for 75 years active in the lighting market. And we are still an independent family-owned business with its headquarters in Malle in Belgium. And we develop, produce, and sell high-quality lighting according to European standards. And from the very start of our company, we always have been obsessed with looking at how we could contribute to a comfortable and safe working environment. And this for a multitude of indoor lighting segments, from hospitals over industry, offices, education, and sports lighting. I would like, my presentation will be about our journey towards full circularity. But first, I would like to start with a testimonial of a real nice CELAS renovation project for a school in Waregem in Belgium. I let the technical director speak.
Ik ben Wim Dufourmont, technisch directeur van deze campus, Campus Hemelvaart, die deel uitmaakt van een grotere groep, de Sint-Paulisschool. Wel, het gebouw waar we ons nu bevinden en waar dus ook ETAP gezorgd heeft voor nieuwe verlichting, dat is een gebouw van halfweg de 60er jaren van de vorige eeuw. Vandaar dat we op zoek waren naar een systeem waarbij hij zegt van modern, eigentijds, met een mooie lichtspreiding over de ruimte en uiteraard met een zo klein mogelijk energieverbruik.
We hebben dus voor dit project eigenlijk de behuizing, de bestaande behuizing van de verlichting behouden. De reflector, de lamphouders eruit genomen en een op maat gemaakte module ingepast. En heeft daarbij niet de plafonds moeten herstellen, niet moeten schilderen, dus wat ook de kostprijs voor de school enorm drukte op dat moment.
Maar anderzijds was ik ook het idee genegen dat we binnen ons economisch model er anders tegenaan moeten en dat de mensen die produceren, dat die eigenlijk ook verantwoordelijkheid moeten kunnen blijven voor wat zij produceren.
Wij hebben voor dit project een engagement van 20 jaar. Wij zijn 20 jaar volledig verantwoordelijk voor het goed functioneren van de verlichting. Dus wat er ook gebeurt, het is ons probleem, het is onze verantwoordelijkheid om te zorgen dat zij goede verlichting hebben.
Verder staat ETAP volledig in voor het onderhoud. Op jaarlijke basis voeren zij een controle uit en hoeven wij ons eigenlijk geen zorgen meer te maken. Dat betekent concreet dat wij daar dus als school zelf met onze werkmensen geen tijd en geen energie meer moeten insteken. Voor ons is het eigenlijk een pure winsituatie.
De klant die betaalt voor de Light as a Service een jaarlijkse fee. En die jaarlijkse fee die bestaat uit de investering, de financiering en de onderhoudskost.
En dat is ook naar leerlingen toe niet onbelangrijk, omdat zij die planeet nog langer zullen nodig hebben dan wij. Dat zij dat besef ook krijgen van dit is belangrijk en dat ze daar vanuit de school een soort voorbeeldfunctie voor krijgen.
Ik denk als school moeten we meer gaan inzetten op duurzaamheid, op het circulaire. En dan mogen we gerust zo'n projecten wat extra in het daglicht gaan stellen.
So why circular light as a service? How do we manage? So we all know the world around us has changed and we are all facing these two mega challenges. We have the risk of depletion of the natural resources. It's clear that we should get rid of our throw away mentality. And therefore we have to shift from a linear to a circular economy. On the other hand, we have the global climate change. There is the absolute need to limit the global warming to a maximum of 1.5 degrees. And to achieve that, Europe wants to become carbon neutral by 2050. We know that the construction industry is accountable for 38% of all carbon emissions. So if we want to achieve net zero emissions, we will need to accelerate the renovation of our buildings. And with this renovation effort, we will, when we are not careful, we will achieve the opposite result. I explain for us in the lighting business, I think we were all used that light sources were consumables. So we had the light bulb, we had the fluorescent lamp. So we bought them, we used them. Once they get broken, we replaced them by another one, and we threw away the light source. Now the model with LED lighting has changed. So the light engine is tailor-made on the luminaire. So what will happen in the future if your luminaire breaks? Then you throw away the whole luminaire. So in that way, we will increase our the consumption of raw materials, and we will increase our carbon footprint. So we should be aware of that. So as a manufacturer, we want to take a long-term responsibility on our product. And that is why our brand promise is tomorrow's light, which has a double connotation. We develop lighting for long-term use in order to help our customers to lower their carbon footprint and to lower the use of raw materials. And of course, we will produce our products with the lowest possible carbon emissions. So what does tomorrow's light mean concretely? Most of you know the circular scheme of the MacArthur Foundation, I think. And according to that scheme, we have defined 3 pillars to develop our lighting products towards a circular economy. The most circular product, of course, is the product you never need to change. So this product needs to be endless. And even our products will, in the end, fail. And then we make it easy to repair them. And if not possible, they have to be refurbishable. And if not possible, we have to disassemble and reuse the parts to make a new product of. So this the future luminaires, or our future in the will be effortless. So the maintenance of our luminaires will be effortless. And only when those first two steps do not work, we need to recycle and use as much as possible recycled material, so tomorrow's light is wasteless. So that means that we are on our journey to fulfill our brand promise. We do not pretend that we are already at our destiny. But when we look at the life of a project, we see multiple opportunities to make steps forward to that goal. And a very first important step into the process is the designing. We all know that 70% of the cost of owning a building comes after it had been commissioned. But 80% of these costs are impacted at the moment we design it. Below, you see the scheme of the maintenance factor of a luminaire. It becomes a little bit technical now, but you see this factor L80 at 50,000 hours, which means that there will be a loss of light, of the light level, the light stream, during 50,000 burning hours. 50,000 burning hours, for your knowledge, is 20 years, 8 hours a day. So with this type of luminaires, you will have to provide 20% more luminaires to achieve the light level, the promised light level at the end of after 50,000 burning hours. So you start already with a higher energy consumption, and because of you have to oversize your installation, you need more material. At ETAP, therefore, we have developed light engines where the loss of light is limited to 1%. You see in the third scheme, you see this L99 at 50,000 burning hours, which means that after 50,000 burning hours, we only lose 1% of the light level. And that is what we say, that is a light source made for endless use. In the middle, you see a scheme L80 with CLO, that is constant lumen output. So we don't, there are competitors who work with a driver with constant lumen output. So which means that they promise an equal light level during your period of use, but with an increasing power consumption, and we don't think that is a good idea. We thought we could do more. So out of this thinking, our OFI range was born. OFI stands for optimized for interdistances, and therefore we use special lenses for a wider light distribution. And doing so, we managed to lower the number of luminaires needed. In the example, we show the renovation project where we achieve the desired result, but with 55 less luminaires. So, which means that 55% less material wasted already from the start. During the maintenance, there are also a lot of opportunities to make more circular products. So a nice example here is the high bay application in industry. Typically, all manufacturers go for a sealed for life design. And we have to say our own first generation E8 luminaire, this high bay luminaire, proved to be a difficult product to maintain an installation condition. So in our new E8 luminaire, thanks to its features, all sensitive components are easily accessible. So you can even leave your product hanging while servicing it, and the triangular design prevents dust from accumulating. So the maintenance will be effortless. And of course, we have a service team helping our customers in the maintenance of their lighting systems. And at the end, at the moment when we renovate, we need to avoid to replace the complete product when we also can just replace the light engine itself. So with our refurbishment solutions, we can upgrade the lighting with a better performance while avoiding to waste natural resources. And of course, we have those solutions as well for our emergency lighting. But everything I've explained before is about developing and producing circular products. The owner, the user, stays responsible regarding the circularity. So if we retain ownership of the installation, we can close the circle and guarantee the total circularity. So with CLAS, Circular Light as a Service, we can cover and guarantee all of the phases in the lifetime of an installation, and this with a total warranty with performance guarantees, in fact. So you rent the lighting for a fixed periodic amount, and we do the rest. So that owning a lighting installation is truly an effortless experience. So what do we need to do more then? We have been focusing on lighting design, maintenance, and renovation. We can help the customer with the financing, so he can keep his capital for his core activities, and in that way he can scale up faster with more projects to accelerate CO2 and euro savings. Of course, we take then at that moment the installation for our account. So we do the installation. Of course, we have partners to do the installation. We are not installers. We have partners to help us to do the installment of lighting installation. And with CLAS, we move a step further, and we are your partner to decide what needs to happen at the end of the contract. Checking the installation and add a maintenance contract for the next 5 or 10 years, refurbish it or upgrade the system afterwards, or take it back and recycle the lighting installation in the most optimal way. But if recycling takes place, we must of course make a maximum use of all this recycled material ourselves. So we try to use recycled material as much as possible for all our new products. So if you look at the left, you see the lace housing. The lay is our architectural luminaire. Already is consisted of 85% of recycled material. And if you look to the picture beside the U2, it's a luminaire which is made of recycled PMMA, and the fixture itself is very easy to disassemble, and 95% of the product mass is recyclable. So I told you we have to produce our products in the most efficient way and with the lowest carbon footprint. So that's why we signed up for the Science Based Targets initiative. They prescribe a 50% reduction by 2030 we have submitted a plan to reduce with 55% by 2025 versus 2028. And I think we achieved our goal already last year. It just has to be certified, but I think we already reached this target. So this was my presentation about light as a service, circular light as a service. I will glad, this is our journey towards full circular products, circular economy. So I will be glad to answer your questions later on. Thank you. And I'm sorry for the interruption in between.
Thank you, Michael. And technology sometimes doesn't work the way that we want it to. No issue there. We have some questions for you that are actually in the Q&A already in the Q&A function, if you're able to answer those live. For the moment, I'm going to share my screen and just talk a little bit more very quickly before we do some live Q&A.
I don't see you in the screen.
Okay. So the reason why we have had this webinar today and why we're looking into this is because, as I mentioned earlier, we have a project ongoing, which is the creation of contract guidelines for product as a service. The idea being that we want to provide guidance on how to advance circular and sustainable building services. And just to recap, so when we're talking about product as a service or PaaS, I know Mikhail was saying CLAS, we like to use these acronyms. So this is really switching from buying products to a pay-per-use or subscription models for these systems. And this is representing a switch from capital expenditure to operating expenses for a customer under a contractual agreement. And in this way, a provider takes responsibility for and ownership of maintenance and operation during the contractual period. And the idea is that for building services, that there are incentives to provide efficiency improvements to optimize performance and to think about lifecycle management to get the most value from the systems. And we've touched on some points here of why this solution is important, but especially because of the cost often of more efficient technologies. This removes this barrier from customers. And in addition, when you outsource performance, you're dealing with the lack of trust that a customer may have in new products. And we really fully believe that the opportunity for this model is basically supporting different sustainability targets, so decarbonization, but also more broadly circularity. And this is where this conversation comes in about what does it mean to be a circular business model, and what is the contribution that product as a service can make towards the circular economy. Just before I touch on that, the SET Alliance is an initiative founded by BASE, which is dedicated to accelerating product as a service models. We have a membership base of a lot of different organizations that are exploring or offering these solutions, and we are supported by strategic partners across industry, consultancy, and research. And what we've been doing for the last couple of years is looking at the existing product as a service solutions that are out there, so in cooling, lighting, and heating predominantly, and trying to understand what the contribution to circularity is, because we know that this is an increasingly important topic. Sorry, Michael, I can hear you if you just want to mute. And the solution that we have been developing is to try and understand industry perspectives. And at the end of the day, what we're developing at the moment is practical guidance to to support thinking around circular economy principles in productized service solutions and the contracts. And the impact that we hope this will have is to basically scale the contribution of products of service to a more circular built environment. And just to say, when we're thinking about the shift from linearity to circularity, as Michael said, and also Mina reiterated, this is a process of transition. And so when we're looking at the current characteristics of product as a service models and circular thinking around these models, there are a lot of different practices that we can think about, starting with reuse and ending with recycling. As well as this, what we have in our white paper, if you'd like to check it out, is this idea that pardon the pun, no PaaS provider is an island. It's about an ecosystem of different stakeholders, a supply chain that need to think about their contracts and how to embed circularity within them. And so what we've done is tried to understand what these different ecosystems look like for the different services and where different contracts are relevant. And this is highly relevant to the work that Mina does in trying to understand what contracts we could look at and where we can strengthen the clauses. And just so we move towards to the Q&A, just the key takeaways is this idea that this is a transition and a complex process towards circular business models, but also to advancing how circular or how much these models contribute towards circularity and sustainability. And the idea that it's not inherently circular, that we need to really consider how we design these models to reduce environmental impacts over time. And that organizations exist to support the different stakeholders in trying to successfully implement these solutions and to develop contracts. And I think we can now move to the Q&A. As we have quite a lot. I know that we only have 1 minute left, but we'll try and answer as many questions and maybe run over if our speakers are able to stay for a few more minutes. Is that possible, Mina and Mikhail?
Yes, it's fine for me, no problem.
I'm sorry, I have an 11 o'clock that I have to attend, but I'm going to just quickly try and answer the two I think that are for me in the chat. If any of the attendees have any more questions, then please feel free just to reach out on LinkedIn or to email me. But yeah, thank you very much. And I'll answer one or two and then I'll have to go.
Thank you, Mina. And thank you to everyone who needs to jump off. Let me... Mina, I see that you answered some of the questions already in the chat as well. Demetrius, I'm just going into the Q&A. Okay, question for you, Mina. What are the key legal risks when embedding circularity into, what do you see as the key legal risks when embedding circular economy principles into products or service contracts? It's probably quite a difficult one for you to answer off the hoof.
Yes, apologies. I've answered what the few that I can. Please feel free to reach out. I've dropped my email in the chat and I'll have to shoot for my next call. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, Mikhail, question here. How do you ensure that the total cost of ownership is lower than the traditional one-time sales business and servicing?
Well, it's all about the long-term use, the long-term quality of our products, in fact. So if you produce luminaires for an endless life, that's what I explained, for a nearly endless life, you don't have to maintain them as much as regular, in fact. And we see when we have those public tenders where they ask the total cost of ownership over 20 years, we see that even that we are less expensive than our competitors in those 20 years. So those competitors with cheaper luminaires, they have to do more maintenance, they have to do more replacements over this period, and we have to do less. And so the price in our contracts or in those public tenders, very often, or mostly of the time, we are cheaper. So yeah, in the total cost of ownership in maintenance, we have a reduced price. I don't know if that's yeah. I think that's the reason. That will answer the question.
And there's a connected follow-up. How do you define a contract period to be 20 years? I know that you offer 10, 15, and 20-year contracts.
Yes, so good question. So we have contracts up to 20 years, and I think half of the projects we have are about a period of 20 years. And standard, we have the first period of 10 years where the investment is paid off. So after this period, you have the next period of 5 or 10 years, and then only the servicing is paid off. So yeah, that's it, in fact.
And I think that the bigger what's been spoken about before is that at the moment there isn't really a secondary market, and so there's still this basically the lack of residual value at the end of the contract.
Yeah, we don't have at this moment. We don't have a second-hand market, and that will come up.
Yeah.
Of course, what we are doing now is the renovation of general lighting and emergency lighting, because of the ban on fluorescent lamps. We have to replace them by LED version. Yeah, there is we will see in 5 or 10 years, maybe there will be a second-hand market for LED luminaires. So then there can be a residual amount maybe for the installation, but at this moment it doesn't exist. And what we do is, okay, after this period of use, the customer can ask me, okay, I don't need the lighting installation anymore. Maybe I'm going to move. Please take back your luminaires. Of course, those luminaires, we can take them back. They have to refurbish, but it's always cheaper to refurbish them on site. If we have to take them back, if we have to do the transportation, to do the refurbishing here in the company, that will be more expensive than a new luminaire. So we have to see, we have to define that refurbishments can take place on site, in fact, for a new destination.
Thank you. Another question relates to the percentage of your sales that are on CLAS contracts, if you're able to share that.
I didn't understand the question. What is the question exactly?
So how much of your work is focused on CLAS?
Okay, thank you. I didn't see that. I think for the moment in Belux, Belgium, Luxembourg, we are at 15% of CLAS, circular light as a service. We have, for the moment, we have 30 projects running in circular light as a service from 10 to 20 years, and the oldest one is about I think started is 8 years. 8 years now. 8 years ago. Mm-hmm.
Great. A question here: what exactly is the value factor that you refer to within the revenue model? Is it fixed price or shared savings model? It's more outcome based, right? It's about.
It is outcome based. just see that I understand good the question. Yeah, I think it's the it's combination of both. For what we promise the customer a total warranty on his lighting installation for this period of 10, 15, 20 years. So all maintenance or replacement that has to be done is covered by our contract. In the meantime, the customer is saving his energy. And what we see is that when we have this investment spread over 10 years, what we see is that the fee you have to pay, you can pay it with the savings you do. So for the customer, very often there is a budget neutral. It's a budget neutral
decision.
Yeah, this is decision to do that. So yeah,
Great.
That's the way it works.
Thank you for clarifying. I see we have quite a lot more questions for you.
I was not so clear, maybe.
Perhaps we can take the questions offline and provide written answers to these in the interest of time. But thank you so much to everyone for joining us today and for the insightful presentations. And please, if you could complete the feedback form to help us improve on our future webinars, and please check out the Set Alliance website for more content related to product as a service models. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you as well.